The central bank got a bit of a pushback from a lot of business groups who said that they kind of just jumped the gun here, especially given the lack of clarity when it comes to the Brexit issue. Do you agree? Was this the right decision?
I think it makes sense for the Bank of England to be withdrawing some monetary stimulus right now. I mean, they can't control Brexit. They don't know what the policy is because the government hasn't decided on what they're going to do. But in the meantime, the British labor market, a lot of labor market indicators are pointing to the tightest job market in several decades. Immigration into the UK from the rest of the EU has plummeted since the EU referendum in 2016. They actually have negative year-over-year growth of employees from other EU nationalities. That's the first time since 2010. And so even with relatively weak growth, the job market is really arguing for less stimulative monetary policy right now and arguing for rate hikes.
William Bob Dahl here. I hear you on Brexit, and I agree, and the labor situation, but underlying inflation is not zero and likely to creep higher. Will not that force the hand of the Bank of England to move more than one a year, do you think? Well,
looking in a broader context, Canada right now, they're in sort of a 2-a-year rate hike mode. So a lot of these advanced economies with relatively weak productivity growth, relatively weak wage growth, and tight labor markets, this seems to be the path. And I think it makes sense that advanced economies with slow labor force growth, aging workforces, and that generates weak inflation. So there's not as much of a need for central banks to raise interest rates back to where they were in the pre-crisis period. So in terms of where an equilibrium interest rate is, the Bank of England had a long write-up in their monetary policy report about where that steady state would be. They're not really picking a number for us, but their view qualitatively is that it's going to be quite a bit below the 4 or 5% where it sat prior to the global financial crisis.